Welcome to Friday at the Philanthropy Roundtable. I'm Checker Finn with the Thomas B. Fordham Institute. It is a treat to welcome back to the Roundtable Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State University, right here in our host city. In 15 years at ASU, Michael, his biography is in the conference booklet, has done some amazing things. Think about the title of the session, an Entrepreneurial University. Is that not an oxymoron? Think about words like innovative, technological, reconceptualized, fifth wave, terms that are commonly, widely applied to ASU. Is this not an almost oxymoron? How on earth did this happen? We're going to get into that in just a minute. ASU has acquired a worldwide reputation. This is a university that started with a small land grant in 1885 from a local butcher out here in the desert. It's now got 100,000 students. Perhaps most amazing to me, as best I can read from my little bit of research, Arizona State University gets only 10% of its total budget from the state of Arizona. Think about that for a minute. And we're going to get into sort of how that happened and how that works. This is a place that is teamed up with organizations as varied as the Mayo Clinic, Starbuck, Teach for America. It operates charter schools. It does amazing things online. And I have to say I'm pretty impressed. Not 100% convinced, we'll get into that in just a second, but I am very impressed. And about halfway through the session, we'll be joined up here by Jim Rahn from the Curran Family Foundation, which is another of the organizations that has teamed up with ASU to do some very interesting things. So welcome, Michael. Welcome to all of you. And thanks for being with us this morning. So you've talked about moving ASU from a faculty-centric institution to a student-centric institution. What does that mean, and how'd you go about that?
Well, one of the things that I learned in complete, total immersion when I was a faculty member at Columbia University and then one of the provosts there for many years was that the university in that model existed for the faculty. And a few students were permitted to learn with them, and they created these fantastic learning environments, and then it became a very difficult institution to manage, a very difficult institution to move forward, even with all of its creativity. And the notion was at a public university that, in particular at a public university, we needed to move away from the university having a culture that was built around the faculty being the principal and moving towards the students being the principal and their success. And so we altered our design and altered our culture, and I think have very significant buy-in from the faculty on the notion that our one and principal reason for existence is the success of our students. Now, you might think that that would be a precondition that was obvious, but not so in the culture of academia.
That's why I'm surprised by the faculty buy-in part. The faculty bought into something that actually shifted the focus away from them.
Well, it's not that they're not unbelievably important and that we don't focus immense amounts of resources on them. It was that we said we're at a public university. If you want to work at an institution that doesn't have as broad of a public purposed mission as we do, that doesn't want to have the broad spectrum of students that we do, then you should go work there. Because what we're doing here is we're engaged in the building of a public university to provide a world-class education to a broad spectrum of students. And to do that, we have to focus our energy on their success. And we have attained buy-in across the vast majority of the faculty for that objective around what we now refer to as our charter. And we have what we call a derived charter. And so the faculty, everyone, we were all a part of deriving this reason for our existence. What we were trying to move away from was the notion of a government-funded, government-managed, government-controlled, government-cultured agency attempting to deliver a public service in the same way that the highway department or the post office delivers a service. And to do that, that meant changing all aspects of the culture, including that student-centrism part.
And you say debureaucratizing the institution? You actually don't have 400,000 central administrators?
We do not, and so one way to look at this is we have this chart that we run, and so how many staff and faculty do various universities have per 100 students?
Yes.
So Ohio State has around 50, we have 11.
Whoa.
And so what that means then is that we found a different structural model. It doesn't mean that we don't have people that others refer to as administrators. We don't have very many administrators, including me. We don't administer. This is not a government agency. We're not operating in that modality. We call ourselves a teaching, learning, and discovery enterprise, a public enterprise. So we operate with efficiency, effectiveness, and efficacy outcomes as a key part of our objective, and then allocate our resources according to that. And so we don't take the standard model. The standard model isn't really working.
I agree with that. Say a word about your relationship to the state of Arizona. You are a public university, you're in Arizona. How do you relate to the state itself as a state?
So the governing board that I report to has set fantastic goals on behalf of the people who they represent, and those fantastic goals are, we want you to produce 32,000 graduates per year, 4 times more than we produced in 2002. We want you to be a research university at the level of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in terms of funding, which makes you the highest funded research university without a medical school in the country, and we're well on our way to attaining that. We want our student body to be representative of the totality of the socioeconomic diversity of the state. So goal setting, which is a back and forth process, is a fantastic part of our relationship. And then the second part of our relationship is a little bit more complicated. The state has historically invested massive amounts of resources into the institution as a percentage of its budget. When I took office, our operating budget was about $700 million a year, and more than 50% of that came from the state.
More than half.
Yes. Right now, our operating budget is $3 billion a year, and around 10% of it comes from the state. And so we've been able to alter all operating aspects of the institution. So our relationship with the quote-unquote state, through the state's representatives, through our governing board, is about setting goals and attaining those goals. Through the legislature, it's about returning on the investments that they make and coming up with a new entrepreneurial model for operating a university, which we have effectively done. They've given us wide degrees of freedom, the ability to operate in a non-governmental agency modality, and then they've made investments in the institution going forward and then allowed us to do lots of other things. And so our relationship is a complicated one, but good.
You were quoted last spring, I think, when the governor's budget came out, as grumping a little bit about the level of state support. Would ASU benefit from more state support, or would that bring more strings, more problems?
No. So what we've done with state support is that the model is so antiquated. It used to be a model in Arizona, as in other states, where the theory was we'll fund you so many faculty lines per additional students. It was called 22 to 1. That was never funded, never effective. Then there were all kinds of ways in which the university funding would go up, funding would go down, funding would go up, funding would go down. And so what we said is, let us greatly lower our cost, which we've done, to produce a graduate. So we've lowered the cost to the state to produce a graduate by 75% in the last 13 years, while enhancing quality and a range of other things. And what we said to the state, and the grumping is not so much grumping, here's my problem. So in 2007, the state was investing $12,000, $11,000 per student per year. In 2016, they were investing, give or take, $5,000 per student per year. Our cost is around $17,000 per student per year, which is low for a university of this type. What we said to the state is, can you fund half of the cost, and we'll make the cost as low as possible. So we've said, let's have a whole new funding model. And we also said to the state, you don't have to fund anything else. Nothing. All we want from the state is half of the cost for an in-state student, nothing else. No more worrying about buildings and maintenance and this and this and this. No more worries about anything. Just fund half of the student. And so we've greatly simplified the model But a lot of folks still see the old model and they want to regulate.
Yep.
So there's arguments that go on about that.
Did you get to the 50-50? Do they in fact fund half the in-state students in Arizona or close to it?
Not half the students, but half the cost.
Half the cost of the Arizona students.
We have what we call conceptual agreement.
Okay. Those are good.
Yes, we have conceptual agreement, but we don't yet have that funding model. So what that means
see.
then is we have to be extraordinarily diligent in the financial operations and execution of the institution to maintain a low net tuition for in-state students, which we do, around $2,200 a year.
Wow.
And that's across 45,000 in-state undergraduates.
45,000 out of your 100,000.
Well, 45,000 in-state undergraduates.
Okay.
Right, out of about 60,000. And so what that means then is we have to make things work in a certain way, and our challenge, so this for those of you that run foundations or businesses, you'll know what this means when I say this. So if you took every dollar that we receive from the state to support a kid from Arizona, and you put every dollar into a pot, and then you take every dollar of tuition that we receive from those students from Arizona, you put it into a pot, even at our very efficient operating margin and costs, we have a net loss of $225 million a year. And so we have to make up that net loss in all of the other things that we're doing. And what I say to folks is to do that is very, very challenging because the other people who are attending the university from other countries or other states are paying a more premium price and demanding an absolutely premium product for that. And so this is a new lexicon that we've been using, and we're still in the stage of negotiating this.
I can believe it. I mean, that's a very substantial sort of deficit to make up from other sources.
Right. We also invest $400 million a year of our own money, give or take, in financial aid. There's no state-based financial aid in Arizona. There's no, and so it's a.
So to get that net cost to the in-state undergraduates down to $2,200, you were doing a lot of financial aid.
We are doing a lot of financial aid because let me back up a little bit. In 1985, our institution had 2% of its students come from the lower half of family incomes.
2% from the lower half.
Which was common among universities at the time.
Yeah.
In 2017, half of our students come from the lower half of family incomes. 12,000 of our undergraduates come from families with no essential income, no disposable income. They're at or below the poverty line, and so, but they have talent, they have drive, they have ambition. So we have to put together very large financial structures to be able to help them to attend the institution.
So talk a little about the 90% of the funding that does not come from the state of Arizona and the entrepreneurial nature of it. It cannot all be lattes from Starbucks.
No, they're not lattes from Starbucks. And so for us, there's, when we act and think entrepreneurially, we've offloaded certain costs. So we've had $1.6 billion of private sector investment in activities in public-private partnerships with the university. We're half off the grid during the day. We have solar power, 50 megawatts of solar power, going to 100 megawatts of solar power, all done in public-private partnerships, no capital expenditures, guaranteed price for electricity. So what we've done is we've taken a business-like approach to partnerships, a business-like approach to acting and behaving in certain ways. We've also decided, unlike other universities, that there's a whole student body out there. There's 31 million people in the United States that started college and never finished. More than half the people that have attended college in the United States don't have a degree from the college that they attended. And so they sit out there, and this is a part of our Starbucks program, they sit out there with an inability once you're 28, 29, 30, 35 years old to go back to college in a regular kind of an environment. So we built technological projections. So we have 30,000 online degree-seeking students in 150 degree programs right now, including the world's first fully accredited online undergraduate degrees in engineering with robots building things. And
online engineering.
Yes, electrical engineering, yes. Unbelievable degrees. And so in those programs, let's say our revenue in those programs in 2011 or 2012 was zero. Our revenue in those programs now this year will be about $400 million. The margins in those programs are such that it allows us to then invest in other areas of the university, including financial aid, including other programs and so forth. So entrepreneurial for us means partnerships, it means operating as an enterprise, it means driving technology partnerships. We have 170 technology partners in our learning platform. We have a small group of 150 people in Scottsdale down the road here in a unit called Ed Plus at ASU. They've built an unbelievable learning platform. So those 150 people are the additive addition to the rest of our faculty, from which we generate $400 million a year of new revenue and 30,000 additional people that we're able to serve who didn't finish their degrees somewhere else. And so for us, these are us acting and behaving in creative, entrepreneurial kinds of ways, through partnerships, through alliances, through restructuring of our own institution.
How about philanthropy per se? You're looking at a sea of philanthropists, and we'll hear from the Kern Foundation in a minute. But beyond that, how do you avail yourself of philanthropy?
So in general, we take this approach that here's our goals, here's our objectives, here's our values, here's the values we're attempting to advance, here's our view of the necessity, those things necessary for the continuation of the success of the United States, the success of our culture, the success of our values. And so what we find in philanthropy are people that share those values, share those goals. And so we end up working together. We don't in general just start sending out proposals. We just find people that share these objectives and start working together. Our philanthropic investments are up 5 times per year in the last 10 years, with lots of people, groups, families, foundations, and others who say, well, let's work together. Maybe we can work on solving this educational problem or this entrepreneurial opportunity or this particular initiative. In fact, we had our first ever philanthropic event where a person showed up, looked at all the things that we were doing, and then just sent a check back in the millions of dollars. I was like, that never happened before.
I'm sure this will happen frequently after this morning.
Because this person, she said that you just let me know what you do with these resources because you're just moving in the right direction. So there's a lot of things that have been happening with us like that.
That's what we call general support. It doesn't happen all that often anymore in the philanthropic world.
No, that's why I mentioned it. It's very unusual.
That's very neat. You also have a international presence. You've got a worldwide academy, online.
So we have a thing called the Global Freshman Academy. So it turns out, so imagine we have a faculty of 3,400 people.
Yeah.
So that 3,400 faculty members is, think of it like a small nuclear reactor. So typically these nuclear reactors have been used just for a limited number of people that can gather around it.
Right.
So what we decided to do was to build on top of the nuclear reactor this technological projection capability. So we did that, and now we have these 30,000 online degree-seeking students. We also have 400,000 learners from 195 countries who are in our Global Freshman Academy taking at least one course, engaging in at least one course. Then we took other things that we had been able to develop. So we took a tool from a private sector company called ALEX, which is an advanced algorithm for teaching math in a very complicated technical kind of way. We spent millions of dollars and lots of brain power building a artificial intelligence-based teacher around that tool. We then launched 2 math courses because it turns out that math is this big bugaboo at many levels of our society.
Yes.
K12, transfer to universities, success at the community colleges, success at the universities. So we built one class called College Algebra and one class called Pre-Calculus. If you can complete successfully college algebra, and don't think about college algebra as algebra, think of college algebra as a mechanism to help a person to understand how to solve for the unknown, to solve for an unknown. That's the skill that one is attempting to teach with algebra. So this algebra course, in the way that we have it now in the Global Freshman Academy, you can go there and find it, you can sign up for it, it doesn't cost anything, it's available 24 hours a day. It is then specifically designed to tutor you. So you can arrive in this college algebra class with 3rd grade arithmetic skills. If you stay with the class, you will become a successful master of college algebra because it will relentlessly tutor you in everything that you don't know in whatever way you needed to be tutored, using big data analytics to help guide your tutoring to solve your particular problem. Now, so what we've done with these things is we've found ways to build these tools, integrate with private sector educational technology companies, then deploy them in massive areas. And so this Global Freshman Academy is an example of that.
So it's adaptive pedagogy.
It's adaptive pedagogy, yes, absolutely. We also have fought all the fights through the math department, through the faculty. Those are all done. Everybody's signed up for this. We have 2,000 faculty trained in technology-enhanced learning. We now call our on-campus learning environment and full on-campus immersion learning environment that's technology-enhanced. And we call our online learning environment online learning environment which is also technology enhanced. And so these technology enhancements are ways in which we've been able to, so our 4-year graduation rate, by the way, has been improved by 90% since 2004, while growing at scale and diversifying at the same time.
Which leads to a question I wanted to ask, which is, obviously the easiest way to boost graduation rates is to make it very easy to graduate.
Yeah, but only idiots would do that, so.
How do you well, that doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
There's lots of idiots.
How do you maintain, call it standards and quality control for your students as they progress toward a degree here?
So we've actually upgraded all of our standards for achievement. We know the quality of our degrees in the market. They're very high. ASU has exceedingly high performance and recognition of that performance after graduation across all dimensions. And so for us, there's no diminishment, there's no dumbing down, there's no changing in the standards. If anything, it's the acceleration of these standards to higher levels. And so for instance, let's just take this math thing. So we realized along the way that a C in math is basically a failure.
Yep.
Because you don't, our predictive models, which we're now using data analytics and predictive analytics across large numbers of students across very diverse backgrounds and very diverse families. And now what we see is that if you get that C in Math 142, your probability of successfully completing a rigorous undergraduate curriculum in the social sciences, of anything, is 50% or less.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is we've actually upped the game for rigor across all dimensions. So along the way, for instance, in 2008, we had 8,000 engineering students with a 68% freshman retention rate. Today, we have 17,000 engineering students on campus with a 90% freshman retention rate across a broader spectrum of families. And that's with upgrading the rigor. Now, we know the rigor is fantastic based on who's getting hired and what they're being paid and how it's moving forward and how they're moving ahead. And so we have been able to figure out how to navigate what in a sense, we had, as an institutional type, our type of institution had failed by approaching too generically this problem. No technology, no enhancement, no innovation, no change, unionization of the faculties, collapse of the purpose of the institutions, everything that you can possibly imagine, leading to the fact that about 700 of the 750 or so public universities in the country have a declining 4-year graduation rate.
Yep.
And for universities that admit B students, which we do also, we have about 12,000 freshmen, about half come in with A averages, about half come in with B averages. You got to be careful out there looking at universities not to be fooled. Great universities now are almost always universities that only admit A students. And the country's most elite universities only admit A+ students.
And they take pride in the smaller the percentage every year.
Right, so our charter says that our institution will be measured based on who we include and how they succeed, not who we exclude. And so that's a whole thing for us. That means then that we've got to do every single thing we can to approach the problem in a way that doesn't produce the same result as the current highly underperforming system. I think it was Peter Drucker that said, your design, your existing product portfolio, your existing quality, your existing outcomes are simply the product of your design, period. If you want a different outcome, you must change your design. We changed the design, and from the design we changed the structure. From the structure we changed all those things.
All of which is more or less unheard of in higher education, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Let me switch for a second to K12, which is where I spend most of my own life. You all are doing some things in K12 that most universities would recoil in horror from. You're working with charter schools. You're working with TFA. You've revolutionized your ed schools. How do you even hold your head up when you're so daring in the world of K12 education?
Well, so we had to start with the fact that we had an education college. We started as a teacher's college, as did UCLA, as did UC Santa Barbara, as did a lot of other big research universities. So we started as the Territorial Teachers College. Our Territorial Teachers College building is still the old main building on our campus. And so our education college had drifted into a mindset problem. The mindset problem was, we're going to be holier than thou. We're going to criticize everyone. We're going to make sure that we focus on nothing but criticize, and we're going to move off our eyes off the ball. So we decided we're going to change that. We did away with our education college, took it down to a foundation, restructured a new thing called a teacher's college. Funny thing about that. And so our job, we thought, was to produce the world's greatest teachers that we possibly could. And so we've taken systematic efforts to redo all of that. That, in general, at the time that I came, the university was against charter schools, against private schools, against home schools, against everything but the status quo model. So we've changed all of that. We now operate 3 very large charter schools in a charter school system that we operate. The first year that we could produce a high school graduate, I was very disappointed. We had underachieved our goal. We had a 98% high school graduation rate. Our goal is 100%. Anything below 100% is a failure. Anything below 100% is a failure. And so we have 3 very different charter schools that we're running. We just started a charter digital high school also, drawing from all the assets of the university and all the other things that we're doing. And so we're involved in every level of activity. We're involved, as you'll hear from Jim, in thinking about new ways to produce teachers, new ways to inspire teachers, new ways to build character-based learning in teachers, to have that then become a revolutionary thing. And so we're working on every dimension of change. So again, back to Drucker. If we have a 75% high school dropout rate, but we have a 50% level of actually achieving high school graduation standards in terms of academic standards, the problem is, and if you go to our charter, it will say this, it is our fault. People should be attacking the universities and saying, what are you doing? You're producing inadequate product, you're producing inadequate outcomes, you're producing inadequately trained people, your models are bad, your theories are bad. We thought we had you people set up in this fantastic environment that you're living in this sequestered arena that you call a university with unbelievable privileges so that you could help us. So why don't you get about the business of doing that? And so we've been trying to do that in K12.
Okay, 2 more questions from me on hot button issues that are in the news a lot these days, and then Jim will join us. What are you doing about free speech on campus, and what are you doing about tenure?
So let's start with tenure. So tenure is interesting. So most people may not know that tenure was derived back in the day when at Iowa State University, where I was a javelin thrower as an undergraduate, professors were fired back in the day, the 19th century, because they said that oleomargarine was okay to eat.
Iowa.
No joke.
Yes, get it.
No joke, because of dairy farmers. And so there was a need to ensure that a faculty member could advance a research agenda or a scholarly agenda without being fired because of the answers that they came up with. That was the purpose of tenure. Tenure then got distorted in universities into somehow people thinking that it's a lifelong contract.
Guaranteed lifelong income.
Employment. It's not that. It's a lifelong license, so long as you're still qualified to fly the plane. So if all of a sudden along the way you have your pilot's license, your tenure, you decide to stop working, you decide to become lazy, you decide to fall off the track, whatever it happens to be, we have what's called post-tenure, or your conduct becomes unbecoming of an officer of the institution. You go through at ASU one of 2 things. You go through post-tenure review, which means your tenure now is being questioned. And most people, when we sign them up for post-tenure review, quit, which is good. And those that don't, then go through the process. And those that go through the process, for which we can derive a remedy, we'll give them another chance, and if we can't derive a remedy that they agree to, then we fire them.
Okay, that's it.
And so that's the way it's supposed to work. And people say, well, how many have you fired? Well, we don't show their heads up on a pike, but we could, and there would be no small number.
There'd be a few pikes.
Yes. And then on other things related, and then I'll come back to free speech.
Yeah.
And so conduct unbecoming, and we've seen a lot in the press about this lately. So a few years ago, we get this email from a student who had an affair with a faculty member. Well, that's not allowed in our institution. It's a power relationship. It's not allowed. It's like there are no exceptions. So the faculty member comes in and meets with the academic leadership of the institution, and they have one question for him. Is what this student said true? That's the first question. Yes. You're fired. Well, I have tenure. You're fired. What about my grants? You don't have any grants. We have grants. You implement our grants. And then his last question was, what should I tell my wife?
Oh. Oh.
We're like, we can't help you there, but you should tell her that you're not employed here anymore. And so you'll be looking for a job somewhere else. Now, to free speech.
Yeah.
In some ways, I don't even understand what this is all about. So someone in North Carolina recently ranked by color all the universities in terms of what level of policies did they have to protect free speech, to allow dissenting views and disparate views to be spoken on campus. And so there were 27 colleges and universities in the United States that were given a green light. Well, we were one of those. And it's because we're adamant about maintaining the ability for free and open discourse at a university campus. Where there's some stuff going on out there. I don't even know what all the words mean. They're talking about people's feelings being hurt because someone's saying something.
Right. Trigger warnings.
Trigger warnings. We're not even really sure what that means. I mean, so you can either you can listen to the speech and you can say that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. You can write the person and say, you're stupid. You can leave. You can not show up. But you're not going to sit in the room and scream at people. And so in general, I don't see any wood up here. In general, knock on wood.
Yes.
We still believe that universities are where people go to hear all kinds of ideas and make things happen, and we try to do everything we can to maintain free speech. Now, we also have to worry about the safety of our students.
Yeah.
The outcome of their lives and so forth, but that's not been an issue for us.
Good for you. I think that I also understand. Yes. I also understand that trigger warning could have many meanings in Arizona.
Yes.
So
I will say, by the way, that we have an extremely diverse student body. So we hear all these things going on at other places. So we have more Jewish students at ASU than Brandeis, which is a historically Jewish university, has students. And so we have thousands of Jewish students and thousands of Muslim students. We have students from 140 countries on campus, 13,000 international students. We have every faith group that you can possibly imagine, every view of the world that you can possibly imagine. And what we basically say is, listen, we're all going to get along here. And
good for you.
I don't know if it's the sunshine or what, but so far it's the
sunshine. It goes right. I think everybody in the room knows Jim Rahn, the president of the Kern Family Foundation. Please join us.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the strong partnership and the strategic alliance which the Kern Family Foundation has enjoyed with Arizona State University, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you my account of the genesis and nature of that partnership. I was introduced to President Crow on January 7th, 2015 by a mutual friend of ours, Nelson Brahms, sitting in the front here. And Nelson connected us, and very quickly, President Crow and I established the fact that neither of us was interested in any kind of a transactional relationship. Rather, we agreed that any relationship between ASU and the Kern Family Foundation would need to be based on shared ideas and a common vision. At that time, he shared with me the charter of ASU and illustrated how that charter manifests itself in every aspect of the university. And I also learned of the many bold initiatives that he had embarked upon to make sure that the culture of ASU was rooted in that very charter. We were also able to compare the mission and vision of ASU with the mission, vision, tactics, and theory of change of the Kern Family Foundation. In brief, the foundation enriches American lives by promoting the value of work, developing the formation of good character, increasing educational achievement, particularly in science, technology, engineering, and math, and in instilling an entrepreneurial mindset, especially in undergraduate engineering students. Our theory of change at Kern is one that views the network as the primary actor in history. We believe that culture changes primarily when networks and overlapping dense networks of leaders and institutions align around a common set of ideas and a shared vision. And certainly such networks benefit from the powerful institutional megaphones and distribution channels such as an ASU. Since that first meeting, just over 33 months ago, ASU and the Kern Family Foundation have partnered on some transformational projects, and I'd like to share a few of those with you today. The ASU Fulton Colleges of Engineering joined 30 other university partners in the Kern Entrepreneurial Engineering Network, or KEEN. All ASU freshman engineering courses and other experiences have been revised so that the nurture of the entrepreneurial mindset is baked into the core. Additionally, an entrepreneurial vertical has been baked into all aspects of the biomedical engineering curriculum, freshman year through graduation. And a faculty onboarding, training, and mentoring program has been created to serve the 25 to 30 new tenure track faculty that the ASU Colleges of Engineering hire each year. And ASU, through the University Innovation Alliance and other channels, will scale nationally this faculty training and mentorship program. Our goal is to touch 100% and influence 100% of new engineering faculty. The Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, under the leadership of Dean Carol Basile, has committed to utilizing an engineering design process to revise all major systems at the Teachers College with a focus on character and entrepreneurship. This focus on character formation and entrepreneurship, though, will not only impact the college and its 5,600 students, but also its 30 partner districts that includes over 600 schools and over 1,100 mentor teachers. As part of this work, ASU is developing a national clearinghouse for research and development in character education. We envision that phase 2 of this project will consist of ASU developing a network of like-minded teacher and leader preparation programs around the country, all focused on the formation of character and the entrepreneurial mindset. ASU's College of Healthcare Solutions and the EdPlus team have developed an online certificate program in the science of healthcare delivery. This project was completed in partnership with the Mayo Clinic and 6 additional medical schools. As a result, medical students across the country now have access to an asynchronous program where they can learn about the science of healthcare delivery and the medicine of tomorrow. Through its partnership with the Mayo Clinic, ASU is involved with the Medical College of Wisconsin's Kern Institute for the Transformation of Medical Education and a national transformation network whose founding members also include Dartmouth, Vanderbilt, UT Austin, the University of California, San Francisco, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Medicine and Public Health. The last major reformation in medical education occurred in 1910 when the Carnegie Foundation funded Abraham Flexner to visit every medical college in the United States and Canada. And since 1910, that Flexner model has guided all of medical education. To say that there is much that needs to change is an understatement. But beyond that, an entire mindset and culture has to change. And so this National Transformation Network is based and committed to the notion that medical education moving forward needs to focus on character, competence, and caring. Next up, in late November, the ASU and Kern teams are meeting with the leadership of PBS Kids and the local Phoenix PBS affiliate to explore the potential for these organizations to work together on a community-based character formation project serving parents in Phoenix. Some general observations about our work over these last, now almost 3 years with ASU. I've been completely impressed by the vertical and horizontal alignment of administration, faculty, and staff around the university's charter. Most universities that I've visited, the vision and leadership are so distributed that to try and figure out where is this university going really has to be answered at the individual departmental level. And at ASU, the charter that has been developed seems to be a compelling vision for all. I would also say that ASU, under Michael's leadership, has attracted faculty and administrators who are first and foremost good people of strong character, and they're also top tier in their field. They're a joy with whom to work. Cross-disciplinary and actually cross-institutional collaboration is the norm. We've found no silos at ASU. ASU is an extremely entrepreneurial organization that, despite its size, is nimble and able to rapidly move to seize new opportunities. And it's been a delight for us to imagine and then bring into reality a variety of projects of mutual interest. And finally, I would say that President Crow has been a great friend, a tremendous strategic ally and partner, and he's allowed the Kern Family Foundation to leverage all of the resources that ASU brings to bear to advance our mission and the work that we're doing together. If you had asked me 3 years ago what would be the odds of the Kern Family Foundation making a large investment in a massive public university, I think I would have laughed and simply walked away. And yet, between now and then, ASU has become one of our key champions and key partners, and I would say if we looked back at the last 3 years, would be one of the great accomplishments from our perspective. So with those comments, Michael and Checker, I'll join you at the, yeah.
Thank you. So, Michael, is this characteristic of the university's relationship with funders, with foundations, with philanthropists, or is Jim as unusual to you as you apparently were to him?
Well, we try to find, well, one, we have as I said in my earlier comments, we look for sort of a value and objective overlaps, and when you find that, then you can start finding ways to work together. So what we have found in general is that all of us in this room have some set of solutions that we're trying to derive or better outcomes that we're working toward. And so for us, I think what's happened is that universities have typically been out there seeking resources for their faculty, seeking resources for the library, seeking resources for a building or for this or for that. And we're in general not interested in those kinds of resources. Mm-hmm. If someone wants to give us those, we'll take them. But in general, what we're after is how do we achieve this objective? How do we find a way to produce a better teacher? How do we find a way to produce a better engineer? Here we have all these things happening around our society that sometimes we just look at that and we say, well, how is that's happening? Why is this collapsing? Why is this not working? Why can't we solve this problem in the cities? Why isn't the economy growing at 4% and 5% and 6% per year or whatever it did at one point in time? Well, one of the reasons maybe is that our engineering schools became too technical and not entrepreneurial enough. Maybe we weren't building entrepreneurism into the engineering faculty at the level that we might. When we find someone that we share that view, when we find Jim as a person or the foundation as an institution sharing that, we're saying, well, what can we do together? How can we work together? How can we make this happen? In medical care, just another point, so we spend $9,000 a year per person in the United States or more on medical care, and we don't have the best outcomes. Well, when people are sitting around saying, how can we get a better outcome? We built a relationship with the Mayo Clinic, and then we become connected in new ways of thinking, and then we start a new school for the science of healthcare delivery. Because if all we do is just the same thing, if the funding just goes to the same old thing, the same old thing, the same old thing, we will get the same old results. And so anybody and any group that's interested in changing outcomes, that's what we are focused on.
I'm sensing that you might actually be able to be more innovative in the medical field by virtue of the fact that you don't have a medical school.
Which we consciously made a decision on in fact, I negotiated with the board when I was appointed 15 years ago that we wouldn't build a medical school. So the standard path for ASU to become a quote unquote elite public university is to do two things.
Yep.
One, cut out the bottom third of our freshman class
right.
and send them off to some
Community college.
community college or
Yes.
state college,
Yes.
and the second is to build a medical school.
Yes.
And I said what we need is a medical school set of partners to work with. So what we decided to do was to invest in new schools like the Science of Healthcare Delivery, the School of Biomedical Informatics, the School of Health, the College of Health Solutions, the School of Nutrition and Health Promotion. These are all things that we have built or revised. Then to find a partner, we found the Mayo Clinic as a partner. We built a comprehensive relationship with them. They, through that partnership then, have expanded their medical school to Phoenix, just now opened this year from Rochester. We're now operating with them across all of these dimensions. Kern Family Foundation is working with them on a range of other things, including the Science of Healthcare Delivery and a range of other things. We then have this shared goal: can we produce a better doctor? Can we produce a better nurse, a nurse practitioner, or what have you? Can we make the system more effective, more efficient, impact more people positively? That's how we become aligned, and then we start working together. And most of the things we work on, they're not even funded. It's not about funding. It's about what are you doing. And then if you need funding, okay, well then maybe there's some funding. But it's what are you doing?
Nice. Jim, obviously the Kern Family Foundation has grant-making relations with other universities. You mentioned the University of Wisconsin. You've got engineering schools in various places. Are those more like sort of one-off grants, or are those kind of deep partnerships like you've obviously been describing with ASU? Is this an order of different magnitude relationship, is what I'm asking you?
Well, I mentioned earlier that our theory of change values not only leaders but institutions, and we think you need both. You need the co-branding of institutions to give gravitas, to give stature, to create something that can't be ignored, and there's a sense of permanence there. So we're always looking for institutional partnerships. What we find at ASU is an institution whose very ethos and ideas resonate so greatly with ours. And so all of the universities with whom we work, the Venn diagrams are overlapping, if you would, Kern. Mm-hmm. What's unique at ASU, I think, is just how nearly completely overlapped.
How nearly completely overlapped. Mm-hmm. Terrific. So everybody out there, we're going to open this up for questions in just a second, but everybody out there is wondering, so why can't we have a university like this in our state?
I have an answer for that.
Please do. That's what I was going to ask you. What's holding them back?
They're unwilling to look at the basic design and to rethink it. They're mortified that something will happen if they all of a sudden break from the ranks. And the rank is, how high can you get your ranking? How elite can you make your institution in general? And so there's this fear that like something bad will happen. And I'm like, actually something bad already has happened. We're not performing. We're not performing. I mean, society is losing respect for institutions. Institutions are not being responsive. We've got all these things going on. What is it going to take for you to realize that the design is incomplete? Now, it doesn't mean that every college has to change. It does not mean that. Yeah. It does mean that some have to change. I've spent a lot of time talking with President Daniels, Governor Daniels, who's the president of Purdue. And so we find a lot of like-mindedness in where we're going and where we're headed, and a few other schools. Yeah. I'm the chairman of the University Innovation Alliance.
Yeah, with
10 other institutions. And what we decided to do was all innovate together to drive up the number of graduates from lower income families. We will have completed in 3 years a 25% trajectory increase in graduates from low income families at those very large public universities: Iowa State, Oregon State, Texas, Kansas, Ohio State, Michigan State. And so this is another way that we're working, and then we plug that into other things that we're doing.
So at least some seeds of change have been planted in a few other states.
Seeds, yes.
Seeds, okay. Not yet seedlings.